By the way, loving the visuals being created. I'm going to have to resist looking at it during my talk. And we did slightly change the name of our talk, so it's Create a Brand, Build a Culture. But I'm sure that's easy to correct. All right, thank you very much. So, the world's most recognized brands are more than just a nice logo. They tell a story that resonates with their audience. And they can change people's perceptions by communicating about the values that they stand for. We choose brands every day: technology, clothing, food, coffee shops, sports teams, even our favorite security awareness community. Think about the brands you have chosen to love, and how have they changed you? Our talk today is on how creating a strong brand for your security program can help build and shape your security culture. My name's Ian. I'm Head of Security Engagement at AVEVA. For most of my career, I've specialized in business analysis and change management. I've often had to find ways to compromise against competing business needs, whether it be functionality, user experience, time, cost, or even security requirements. Although at AVEVA, we never compromise on security requirements. So these last few years, my drive has been to understand how, instead of adding new layers of security controls onto a business, we instead work with the business to embed good security behaviors into how they need to work. I'm very happy to be joined on the stage by James, who many of you will already know within the community.
Thanks, Ian. So I'm James. I'm the Security Awareness and Culture Lead at AVEVA, and I've been in that role for just over 2 years now. I've been in the human risk industry for about 5 years or so, but pretty much most of my career has been helping or supporting people in one way or another. But with security awareness, we get to help people at work, but also in their personal lives, which that's what I kind of find super rewarding. So I'm sure you recognize some of these challenges. I do really love my job, but it does come with some challenges, as you can kind of see on screen here. So I'm sure most of you have faced them at one point or another. So, getting employees to engage and participate in your security awareness program in the first place, being able to translate that awareness into actual behavior change, facing resistance, from within your organization itself, and then measuring the effectiveness of the security awareness program and demonstrating that return on investment. And then finally, kind of ensuring you have the most up-to-date and relevant content for all of your employees. So our talk today, create a brand, build a culture. So 2 years ago, our security awareness program didn't really have much of an identity. I was struggling to engage with senior managers and employees. But today, pretty much most of our employees know who we are, and what we do and how we kind of support them in protecting our organization, themselves, and our customers. So we'll now tell you the story of how we kind of create our awareness brand, which helped kind of build a growing security culture across the organization.
Thank you, James. So, chapter 1, scene setting. Imagine you're reading a book. You've got a bit of time on your hands. Maybe you're traveling for a conference. So you've chosen the complete Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's a bold choice. If you're traveling, have a good hand luggage allowance, as I found out. And say you've gotten halfway through the book. There's wizards, hobbits, quests, magic ring. Hopefully you kind of know the story. But imagine if the author then reveals that the story is set in the old Wild West? How would you feel? Confused? Annoyed? Maybe like giving up reading any further? Setting the scene early on in your story is key for managing your audience's expectations. But how does this apply to us? So when thinking about your human risk program, your security awareness and training plan, or your entire security strategy, whatever your scope and whatever you want to call it. First, think about your environment. For example, which industry do you work in? Which regulations do you need to comply with? Who are your biggest threat actors? How do they target you? Why do they target you? Then consider the context around you. What is your business strategy and how can it support your message? Who is your audience? Where are they located? And what is their current level of security awareness knowledge? And then finally, what challenges does your current security program face? Are there departments that you struggle to engage with? And why do you think that is? And then ask yourself, is the current level of executive support enough to get your message heard? So James will run through a few examples of how we've set the scene at AVEVA.
Thanks, Ian. So looking at the environment, that's where we had to kind of really kind of understand AVEVA before we kind of started the brand journey. AVEVA is a global industrial software company, so working across most industries and essentially enabling organizations to improve their efficiency, sustainability, safety, all the kind of really important stuff. We've got about 7,000 employees spread across the globe in almost 50 countries. And a significant amount of customers operate critical national infrastructure. So we've got really kind of important customers there. The security team that we work in, we cover more than just cyber. So we do physical, travel and events, personnel, pretty much anything to do with security comes under our remit. And then moving on to context, important piece of the AVEVA strategy is our move from on-prem to software as a service. So this would mean we have much more customer data than we've ever had before. A large proportion of our employees are either kind of technical developers or they're in the sales team. Our developers pretty much have to account for almost every hour of their day. They've got their kind of work mapped out there. And then our sales team are just kind of traveling the globe, making sure that kind of grow and maintain our customer base. And then the executive team wanted reassurance, that we're driving the maturity of security at AVEVA. And then onto challenges. So recognizing and identifying these kind of make them into opportunities for us. We have quite a mix of security savviness at AVEVA. The more security savvy people tended to be the technical ones, the developers. So we needed to make sure we had relevant content for them so they don't get too bored and just switch off. And then with the employees being across the globe, it's pretty tricky to kind of get a perfect slot for any kind of webinars or activities. So we're always trying to plan for the biggest audience there. So to do this, we'd look at headcount across countries, public holidays, things like that. We have quite a few presence in countries where they seem to have a lot of public holidays, a lot more than we get at the UK. So it's really kind of tricky sometimes to get that sweet spot. But we also look at what's happening locally in AVEVA offices. So there could be other stuff happening there. But yeah, it just helps to kind of get that all kind of planned out. And then organizational change is always going to be a difficult one. I meet it regularly with the internal communications team, and they let me know if anything's going on with any kind of function, so you can kind of avoid any sensitive times or busy periods or anything like that. And then not so much organizational change, but our sales team are pretty busy at the end of every quarter, so we try and avoid any kind of big activities around those times. So like key takeaways for like scene setting would say kind of, get to know your organization if you don't know it already, have that line of sight of, your strategy and your audience and things like that. And then, any challenges, try and, make them into opportunities.
Thank you, James. So on to chapter 2 of our story, the hero. How many of you have watched a film where you struggled to connect with the main character? The film may have had a great setting, a really good storyline, your favorite actor or actress, but something didn't quite click. Maybe you struggled to understand the character's backstory, or relate to their desires, or their approach to a difficult situation. If you watched the Lego movie, maybe you didn't quite experience the joy of building a Lego spaceship like this guy. But how likely is it you would then recommend the film to your friends and family? Making a personal connection with your audience to keep them engaged is our next step. So first, explore the values for your security program. How do you want it to be perceived both inside and outside your organization? Will it be supportive and advisory? Or does it need to be more assertive and prescriptive? And when thinking about your values, make sure they align to your wider company values. Next, what strengths do you have? Look at which communication methods work well with your audience. And if you have a team or just by yourself, discuss what skills and experience you can use. And only then build a strong visual identity. One that aligns with your context, your values, and really captures your message. And also make it adaptable to the communication methods that you've identified within your strengths. So James, many people see you as a security awareness hero, but how did we build the security image at AVEVA?
Thanks, Ian. So definitely kind of came at it from a friendly approach, or that's how I'd kind of describe it. So if people click on a malicious link or an phishing simulation, or they're involved in a security incident in any way at all, we don't assign any kind of blame to them whatsoever. An example of this would be, so when we have one-to-one conversations with people, if they've clicked on a malicious link for whatever reason, the first thing I do when I have a call with them is just apologize that our security tooling didn't kind of catch it for them. And then I think there was a few talks yesterday touching on recognition and things. So we celebrate people that kind of report or notify us of any kind of phishing email or security incident or anything like that. And we use our kind of internal recognition platform to do that. But we've started to use the word notify instead of report recently. This was in some forums and some community calls that we've had where report can be seen as, not necessarily negative, but it could be more formal, and it's saying something's bad happened or something like that. Whereas notify is a little more, I've seen this or noticed this, security, please can you kind of check it out for me? We don't have any metrics on that yet to kind of prove it's actually increasing anything, but it just kind of feels right to us for sure. And then also we kind of recognize notifiers and reporters. So what we've added to the importance of reporting is the speed of reporting. So when we do our phishing simulations, we shout out the top 3 quickest notifiers or reporters, and we put them along with the kind of results on our intranet page. And then a support mechanism that we've kind of introduced this year is where we'll reach out to new hires. So we'd welcome them to AVEVA. We'd explain how to notify us to report a security incident. and then also kind of highlight the security services that we offer that they can kind of benefit from. And we use Outlook Mail Merge to do this, so we can do a real kind of personalized individual message to each of the new hires. We used to send this direct from my email account, and pretty much everybody would respond, thanking me for the warm welcome, for the resources and all that kind of stuff. But then we moved to our shared mailbox to kind of keep in line with the brand, and pretty much didn't get anybody responding at all. So I thought, better check this out. So we sent a feedback survey out to them just to see if the kind of initiative was working. We had all positive results back, but I guess taking that kind of personal touch away just made people didn't think, it's a human behind it to send anything back. So we'll probably still keep it with the shared mailbox, but it's just something to consider for us. And then moving on to our strengths then. So we lean into these at kind of every opportunity that we can. We're pretty fortunate that we have the support of the executive leadership team to be able to assign our security training to everybody. I even had, I think it was last year, the CFO even let me create a deep fake image of him. So it was pretty powerful. And then the benefits of communities such as these ones. So you've got the SANS one, there's the SebDB, Wiser, there's loads. I'm sure you've got kind of local ones as well. Everybody's just so friendly and kind of giving. Everybody wants to help each other out, share best practice, share activities, ideas, things like that. I've even got taglines and slogans from people probably in this room or out in cyberspace. So it's a real good community to be part of. And then we make the most of a captive audience. So we know that the majority of our sales team, they get together every year, all in person. I would have said from the talk earlier that our culture would be a hot one, but we use posters at the event, so maybe it's a warm culture, perhaps, a bit of a mixture. And the posters seem to work really good. They're always kind of like walking past them, so they be able to take that information in. And then moving on to identity. So I pretty much see the identity or the brand as pretty much the face of security. But to ensure that it kind of fitted from a corporate perspective, we enlisted the kind of help of the marketing team. But I didn't just send a cold request in and ask them to make me something. I found out who the contact was, set up a call with them, just kind of build that relationship, explain what the program's all about, what we're trying to achieve. And then that's just kind of helped with the back and forth with creating our logo and things. And the logo is pretty easily recognizable within AVEVA. It's most of AVEVA's kind of branding is no more than a couple of words or so, just kind of simple and straight to the point. So we just kind of kept it in line with that. So it's similar to other initiatives and things. Half of our colleagues, English isn't their first language, so we just wanted something that explains our program in just one phrase. And probably even if everybody could, their first language was English, we'd probably still keep the same thing because it just kind of works. And then we incorporated symbols and things and colors, so it's kind of recognizable with AVEVA and security, and this just kind of helps us to be recognizable. There was in some community calls and forums, there was talk about locks being seen as negative, perhaps, but I think it just depends on your organization. I've seen some great lock logos, even one with a guitar, so I wouldn't be put off to use that. And then recently, we've been using or treating Think Secure as its kind of own identity or its own kind of like being to try and give it life and more meaning. So it'd be like Think Secure invites you to this webinar, or ask Think Secure, something like that. So takeaway for heroes, be focus on a friendly brand if you can. Lean into your strengths at every opportunity, and then just embed something that's recognizable for everybody.
Thank you, James. So on to chapter 3 of our story, the adventure. So you set the scene, you've got your hero, and now it's time to put it into action. You may have all of the right systems, the data, the escape rooms, all of the great stuff that we've talked about over the last day or so with the conference and beyond that. And you might have the perfect plan to launch it. But how well do those plans usually work out, both in fiction and in real life? Staying focused on your goal while faced with unexpected events and new challenges is always the most difficult part of the journey. So whether you're just starting out on your new adventure or you're here to gather new ideas to make the next big push, think about how will you drive engagement with your program? And how will you generate meaningful discussions with your audience? What new approaches could grab their attention from the busyness of everyday life? And how will you actually know that you're making progress? Next, you can rarely do this alone. Check what support is out there for you. Which colleagues or departments could you collaborate with to enhance both your messages? And how will you make the use of the resources of this great community? And then lastly, be flexible and adapt. I'm sorry to say that you will face internal and external challenges. Company changes, global events, new threat actors. Find a way to use these events to drive your story and make it relevant for today. So James, what does the adventure look like at AVEVA?
Thanks, Ian. So we applied the Think Secure identity and brand consistently across pretty much everything, all materials that we've got. So the logo, mailbox name, email signatures, intranet page, corporate presentations, Teams background images, annual training, champions network, desktop wallpaper, the new hires initiative mentioned, even our cue cards today. And then recently, we've introduced the Think Secure kind of brand to our early careers folks. So these are like apprentices, graduates, interns, those types of employees. But instead of doing a presentation, we created a kind of, it's not as good as Adrian just say, but like a escape room, kind of choose your adventure type thing. Essentially, it's just an elaborate PowerPoint kind of slide, but with so it gives you a look and feel of an interactive game. The story is all about stopping a criminal group from stealing our latest product. So it's really kind of tailored to AVEVA. So hopefully that kind of resonates with our colleagues. And then similar to how Adrian was saying yesterday, you don't have to do all the kind of hard work yourself necessarily. So I got ChatGPT to do all the kind of heavy lifting for me. One of the puzzles is about reviewing social media profiles. I would take far too long thinking what to name the person, what color hair they should have, what pets they should have, all that kind of stuff. So ChatGPT just did all of this for me. Even wrote their first posts, added in their hobbies, all that kind of good stuff. Off and on, it took me about 3 months to create. But if I'd not used ChatGPT, I'd probably still be worrying about what to name someone or what color hair they should have. So it's really good help. Had great feedback so far from the activities as well. So people really seem to like it. But one kind of learning point is that it's tricky to scale because you do need a host to kind of run it through. We haven't got a big team. So I had to kind of enlist the help of like the wider security team to be hosts for us. And then we use the brand for other kind of security initiatives. So not necessarily security awareness, more kind of like support messaging-ish stuff. So this would be any kind of new projects or new tooling or anything like that. And we use that because it kind of helps with the adoption and utilization. So in theory, it's like familiar to people. So when they receive it, it's not just a random project reaching out to them. They kind of recognize it. And then also it kind of helps when if there's any concerns, issues, questions, they know exactly who to reach out to. They can just come straight to us. So it really helps there. And then on to support. So to maximize our reach, kind of use security champions. So we recruited these last year or the year before, I think. But we did this in quite a simple but very effective way. So shout out to Brian Wright for sharing this technique with me. Essentially, we just identified anybody that had shown some kind of interest in security. So liking or commenting on a AVEVA Engage post, interacting with the intranet article, news article, reporting suspicious emails or any kind of incidents or anything like that, attending webinars, So pretty much anything to do with security, we reached out to them and essentially we just asked them if they wanted to be a champion. We'd outline the roles and responsibilities, what was kind of involved, but yeah, we just kind of asked them. We had 50% volunteer, so I was pretty impressed with that. And then the champions, they don't just spread our content and messages. They also kind of get involved with new tooling and technology. And I also use them as almost like guinea pigs to test out any kind of initiatives. So the escape room I mentioned before, I tested it out with them just to kind of run it through, just to kind of dial it all in. So it was working as expected. And then external collaboration. So I think sometimes it just helps to have a different voice, telling your message. So I'm sure many of you got security vendors and things that you can reach out to, ask them to loan you an expert for a webinar, or even kind of give you some merchandise for prizes and things like that. I think you just got to be cheeky and ask, if you're not going to ask anything, you're not going to get anything. I've managed to get several speakers, hats, Yeti cups, all sorts of things, all completely for free. Yeah, nobody's said no yet, so just keep on asking. And then on to adapt. So, I'm sure it's the same for most of you in the room. Getting time on people's calendars can be pretty tricky. So when we're planning for any kind of events or activities, we link in with the internal communications team, and they can help us kind of choose the best date, so we're not kind of getting in the way of anybody else. And then also it gives us opportunity to maybe kind of like team up and run things with other people. So understanding that calendar events really kind of helps us. Recently we ran a travel safe session, and we did this in conjunction with the health and wellbeing team. So that helped us manage the event, promote the event, all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't just us having to do everything. And then where I can, I send a direct invite to people, just straight from Outlook. When we do this, we see probably like 15 to 20% attendance from what we send out. But when we ask people to kind of register for an event, which it's only probably like 2 clicks rather than 1 click, this drops to less than 5%. So where we can, we send kind of direct invites out to everybody, and that really kind of helps us. We also ask for feedback after any kind of main event or activity. Try and keep the questions simple and the same as for each kind of event, so then we can kind of collate them all together. And we also include, what other things do people want to learn about, so that kind of helps us when we're planning our next stuff. So kind of key takeaways for adventure is, brand everything if you can, collaborate with your vendors and things like that, and then, just kind of align with what else is going on in your organization.
Thank you, James. So we've reached the end of our story, or have we? Like any good multi-part tale, don't try and tackle this all at once. I've probably only got through about 20 pages of this. Find appropriate places to pause, reflect, and replan your next journey. So James, what's next for AVEVA?
Thanks, Ian. So I don't think our story will really ever end, but maybe one day, still adapting to kind of new changes inside and outside of AVEVA. But some things we want to kind of focus on, showing up on screen here. So evidence and risk-based. So we want to kind of devise metrics that really help to kind of demonstrate that, key link that our activities are, directly connected to our risk. So we've got that kind of line of sight there. I mentioned the new hires earlier, so this is kind of taking that a step further, proactive outreach. So where we find or see people, new hires, where we think that they'll need more security support or collaboration or something, we're going to set up kind of one-to-one introduction with them to kind of form new alliances. And then finally, something called security first aid. So this phrase came out of one of the community practice calls that I run. And essentially it's to have like a virtual shelf of resources that you can kind of signpost employees to after they've been involved in an incident or something of that nature. So they've just got stuff right at their fingertips so they can get the support that they need. And then even encourage them to kind of share it with their friends and family as well. So to kind of sum that up, I think, link to your organization risks. If you're not doing it already, try and create as many new alliances as you can. And then, just support your colleagues and customers as much as possible.
Great. And I'm sure you've thought of loads more new ideas from the past day.
Definitely.
Right, so we hope you've enjoyed our talk today. But if there's one takeaway we want you to have, it's this question. What story will you tell? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, James and Ian. Y'all, I forgot to mention, this is their debut on stage. So can we just give one more big round of applause for their first presentation ever? All right, we have 3 minutes for questions. Does anybody in the audience have a question? Go ahead and raise your hand. We'll go ahead and get started with a question on Slack. From Sherry, Ian, when you were speaking earlier, you mentioned that you utilize a community for sharing ideas. Could you share that resource and how you find those ideas?
Well, I think it's the SANS community is the main one, but there's SASIG as well. I've attended a few events in London for them. Just Google, you know, there's so much resources out there. But I think, you know, James will say that making personal connections and being in contact with a company and sharing ideas with peers.
Yeah, definitely. And then, you know, you've got the SANS community that are here, but there's other ones online. So there's the SebDB, Live in Security. I don't think Wiser necessarily have like a platform to go on, but they have like weekly calls that you can kind of join and just, you know, crowdsource ideas, chat through things. And they're all completely free.
And I would also say, look outside the awareness, you know, community. Get ideas from other sources, you know. As I mentioned, I'm kind of not from this background. I come from business analysis. So often I get chucked into various projects that I have no previous context before and no background. So it's just about kind of looking at different ways to solve the problem.
Awesome. Another question for y'all is, I think when we talk about branding, especially in the conversations that I've had with multiple people in the room, one comment that I always hear is, I can't do that. My company won't let me. We're not allowed to brand. We're not allowed to have a character. We're not allowed to have a logo. So when we have y'all come up on the stage and you're like, create your brand, we want to. So I want to hear about what are some roadblocks that you might have had along your journey?
Sure. So it wasn't an easy sell to begin with, but it's just, I think somebody mentioned yesterday about perseverance. You just got to keep going with them. Build those relationships with the, you know, the internal communications team, marketing team, all that kind of good stuff, just to kind of help them to get on your side. I think if you explain everything, what you're trying to do and everything, you will kind of get there eventually. There's been loads of stuff I've been, you know, stopped from doing. So when I first joined in the first year, I wanted to do something on insider threat, and I was basically told, you can't do that. You're saying that you don't trust anybody in the organization. But it didn't put me off. Obviously, I didn't do the actual activity I was going to do. But yeah, just keep going, and you'll kind of eventually get there. Our branding was kind of the first like official kind of branding within AVEVA. And now we've started to see other kind of functions do that as well. So I think it's the ethics team. They're starting to get things put together for that. Health and wellbeing team, all that kind of good stuff. So I'd be happy to come and whoever that was talk to them offline or whatever.
Yeah, and we're sharing that knowledge with our colleagues as well on how we've approached this. And yeah, I think it's just a joint effort across the company.
Awesome. Thank you two again so much. One more round of applause for Ian and James.